China's next move in Bangladesh. What Delhi needs to know. Right now, in India's own backyard, a geopolitical shift is underway. It's quiet, it's calculated, and it could change the balance of power in the Bay of Bengal for good. This isn't just about another investment or a trade deal. This is the next play in a high-stakes game for influence, and it's unfolding right on India's doorstep. For years, Dhaka skillfully balanced its relationships with the two Asian giants, India and China. But the ground is shifting. A new government in Bangladesh is making different choices, and Beijing is seizing the opportunity. The question is no longer if China will make a move, but what that move is, and what does Delhi absolutely need to know to counter it. The story begins with a dramatic political transformation in Bangladesh. The student-led Monsoon Revolution of 2024 brought an end to Sheikh Hasina's long and controversial tenure. After a period under an interim government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, elections in February 2026 saw a decisive victory for the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP. Its leader, Tariq Rahman, became the new prime minister, ushering in a new era. This new leadership has signaled a significant foreign policy recalibration. Where the previous government maintained a careful balance, the new administration seems to be navigating a complex realignment, weighing both pro-China and pro-Western interests. This isn't just talk, it's backed by actions that have set off alarm bells in New Delhi. One of the most talked-about examples is the Mongla Port, Bangladesh's second-largest seaport. A project to develop an economic zone at the port, once earmarked for Indian collaboration. But after 8 years of signed the deal with India for the seaport and the economic zone development, India has not any investment in 8 years for the projects. The project has now shifted into China's orbit after the previous agreement stalled. A Chinese state-owned company has signed a deal to develop the economic zone, a move seen as a major strategic gain for Beijing. While India has been investing in rail and road connectivity to the port, China's direct involvement in developing the port's economic zone is a major reversal of what New Delhi had hoped for. Further reports indicate that Dhaka is considering acquiring more Chinese military hardware and has already acquired Chinese-made submarines for its own submarine base. BNS Pekua. These aren't the actions of a country merely seeking economic aid. This is a strategic realignment, and for India, it represents a serious challenge in its eastern neighborhood. To understand the gravity of these developments, we have to zoom out. China's moves in Bangladesh aren't happening in a vacuum. They are carefully placed pieces on a much larger geopolitical chessboard. First, there's China's grand strategy, the Belt and Road Initiative, and its string of pearls. For years, Beijing has been systematically funding and building ports and infrastructure in countries surrounding India, from Pakistan to Sri Lanka. The goal is to create a chain of strategic assets that encircle India, giving China economic leverage and military access across the Indian Ocean. With its key location in the Bay of Bengal, Bangladesh is a critical piece of that puzzle. Now, there are concerns that Beijing is looking to revive its push for a China-Bangladesh-Myanmar economic corridor, a plan that would give China direct overland access to the Indian Ocean, bypassing traditional sea lanes. Second, and perhaps most critically for India's security, is the threat to the Siliguri Corridor. This narrow strip of land, often called the Chicken's Neck, is the only land bridge connecting mainland India to its 8 northeastern states. It's a profound strategic vulnerability. For decades, India relied on a friendly Bangladesh to keep this corridor secure. Now, a key flashpoint is the Teesta River. After years of stalled water-sharing negotiations with India, Bangladesh has formally sought China's technical and financial help for a massive billion-dollar Teesta River Comprehensive Management Project, while a final deal isn't signed. The prospect of Chinese personnel and assets operating so close to India's most sensitive choke point is a scenario that deeply unsettles military planners in Delhi. Finally, there's the powerful tool of economic statecraft. China is Bangladesh's largest trading partner and a dominant investor. By offering duty-free access for nearly all Bangladeshi products and extending massive loans for infrastructure, Beijing is weaving a web of economic dependency. Critics often point to this as a strategy of debt-trap diplomacy, where economic leverage is used to gain political influence and force strategic concessions. This complex web of ports, corridors, and diplomacy is reshaping South Asia right before our eyes. Understanding these dynamics is crucial to grasping the future of the region. If you're getting value from this analysis, take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We break down the biggest geopolitical stories so you can stay ahead of the curve. Faced with this multi-pronged challenge, New Delhi is on high alert. The Ministry of External Affairs has stated that it is closely monitoring China's expanding presence and will take appropriate measures. This is standard diplomatic language for a situation that is anything but standard. India's response is pragmatic, avoiding direct confrontation while reinforcing its own influence. On the infrastructure front, India is working to strengthen its own connectivity projects, like completing the Khulna-Mongla Railway line to improve access to the very port now seeing increased Chinese involvement. In another clear demonstration of its role as a regional connector, India is facilitating the transmission of electricity from Nepal to Bangladesh through its territory. Diplomatically, India is resetting its relationship with the new government in Dhaka, emphasizing deep historical and cultural ties that exist independent of any third country. There are reports that New Delhi has signaled its own willingness to take up the conservation and management of the Teesta River, a potential counteroffer to China's proposal. But there are important questions about India's technology capability and expertise in implementing the Teesta mega project, as well as about India's financial capability and ability to finish the project on time. However, the challenge runs deep. The new government in Dhaka is not a passive pawn. It's actively trying to carve out its own third way, balancing not just India and China, but also bringing in the United States to maximize its strategic autonomy. This makes the situation far more complex for New Delhi. India must now navigate a relationship with a more assertive Bangladesh, one that is willing to use its geostrategic position to its own advantage amid great power competition. The geopolitical map of the Bay of Bengal is being redrawn. China is not just investing in Bangladesh, it's executing a deliberate, long-term strategy to embed itself in India's neighborhood, secure access to the Indian Ocean, and challenge India's regional standing. Its moves on the Mongla Port Economic Zone and the Teesta River are not just commercial projects, they are potential strategic beachheads. India finds itself at a critical juncture. Its response has been watchful and measured, focused on strengthening its own assets and diplomatic ties. But the fundamental reality has changed. Bangladesh is no longer just a partner in India's neighborhood-first policy. It has become a contested space, an active agent in the great power competition between New Delhi and Beijing. The outcome of this rivalry won't be decided by one side alone. It will be determined by Dhaka's delicate and increasingly consequential balancing act. As China makes its next move, the ultimate question remains. Will Delhi's pragmatic counterplay be enough to secure its own backyard, or is the balance of power in the Bay of Bengal shifting for good? What do you think? Write in the comment below.